Welcome back to the channel. My name is Clay Wong, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about why the DC5 Integra Type R is going to be the next big thing and why. If you guys have been keeping up to date with the car prices lately, you'll know that JDM cars have just gone through the roof. In recent time, the DC5 hasn't really appreciated as much as the other Type Rs in the lineup. The EK9s, the DC2s, as well as the FD2s have just gone through the roof. But now, things are going to completely change forever. With the new Acura Integra looming around the corner, there's no doubt it's going to be a fantastic car. But it's built by Honda USA, and it's no longer a JDM-built Integra. We're going to be diving into all the background information that you need to know as to why these cars are so special in Honda's Japanese motoring history. As you can see, we are situated in an apartment garage once again because we are still in lockdown here in Melbourne, Australia. It has just been extended for another 2 weeks, and honestly, we don't know how long it'll be till we're let out. But for the meantime, we're going to continue making epic content for you guys. It's going to be a really informative segment on these cars and as to why I own one of them as well. Whether or not it's for investment purposes or for pure driving pleasure, you're not going to want to miss out on this video. So let's get straight into it, guys. The Honda Integra nameplate has actually been around for a very long time. It was first released in 1985 with the first generation, and then came the second generation of that car in 1989. It wasn't until the NSX-R that came out in 1995 that sparked Honda's F1 technology into their production vehicles. And then deep into the third generation of the Integra in 1996, where Honda sought to create a Type R variant of the Integra nameplate. And that car, as we all know, is the iconic 90s JDM DC2 Type R. Being such a hit in Japan, people around the world really wanted the DC2 Integra Type R, but it wasn't until 1999 where Honda had finally decided to send off a global export model. But this car had a completely different front end, it had a detuned motor, and it was only sold for 2 years. But everyone still loved this car. And so when the next generation Integra came out, the DC5, people rushed to dealerships to buy this car. And when Honda introduced their Type R variant of the DC5, it was a completely different animal from the DC2. It had a revolutionary new iVTEC K20A JDM engine, which was good for making 160 kilowatts of power, or 220 PS, or 217 horsepower. And this is arguably the best naturally aspirated engine that Honda had ever released. Apart from the motor, it came with the factory-fitted LSD, the factory-fitted Recaros, along with all the other Type R trickery that you just know and love. Because this is Honda's first attempt at redesigning the Type R with a completely different chassis, there were a fair few drawbacks to the Integra DC5 Type R. And that was most notably the steering rack. Because it sits on top of the suspension, there is an inherent issue with bump steer. And if your DC5 is modified, lowered, and it isn't set up correctly, it can potentially be very invasive on the street and even on track. So it really pays to have all your suspension settings dialed in with this car, or else it can be potentially quite problematic. After developing the Integra DC5 Type R, Honda learned a lot of things, and then they went on to engineer the FD2 Civic Type R, which was the last ever Type R to come out of Japan. That car was the culmination of Honda's best engineering in the Type R, and it was effectively faster than this car. It handled better. Even being a four-door, it was more practical, it was bigger, it was more stable at the limit on track at Tsukuba or Fuji Speedway. It was just an overall better car. And in the grand scheme, you can really see why the DC5 Integra Type R has always played second fiddle or second best to the other cars in the lineup. But what makes the DC5 Type R unique compared to the other Type R siblings is because it combines all the elements of the Type R in one sports car. The fact that it's a two-door coupe with a hatch aesthetic makes it practical, easy to live with, and still looks like a very serious sports car. And the fact that the JDM DC5 Type R came out with the best naturally aspirated engine that Honda had ever released. Or if you had the DC5 Type S, you had the K20Z1, or the export model DC5 Type R with the K20A2, or fantastic K-Series engines with iVTEC. It just pioneered the way for all of these K-Series engines. That whenever we're looking for K-Swap motors, we look for these cars with these particular engines. And in unison with the motor, it has a 6-speed close ratio manual transmission gearbox. It has the factory fitted LSD, the factory fitted Recaros. All of these things make the driving experience so engaging and visceral and still raw in this car. It's definitely not as raw as the DC2 Type R, but it's not as refined as the FD2 Civic Type R. It combines both into one epic sports car. I think the DC5 Type R is a car that seamlessly blends these cars together, and for me, it really does it all. I often find myself jumping into the DC5 Type R because it's also so livable and comfortable to drive on a day-to-day basis. That's why this car is so filthy. I'm always in this car, driving from shoot to shoot, or I'm commuting from A to B, or I'm taking it out on the mountain runs, and potentially later on as well, on track. It's a car that does it all. And because of the fact that it has a huge trunk space, because of that hatch style setup, it makes it so practical that I can fit all my camera gear in here very easily. And it's very comfortable for the passengers as well. There's a lot of space around for the driver, the front seat, and at the back you can fit 2 little adults. I wouldn't say it's the most comfortable for your tall passengers. However, if you have little kids, it's a no-brainer. It just works so well in these cars. And I honestly don't think that this car looks more than 10 years old. Don't get me wrong, the DC2 Type R is a better looking car. It is more iconic and it's truly 90s. But when you look at the DC2 Type R, it looks a little bit dated and you can't get away from that fact. However, when you look at the DC5, it looks modern, contemporary. Honestly, it was so ahead of its time when it was released because it still looks futuristic in some elements still to this day, which I really like about this car. You know, set out in championship white with the red accents, the big wing at the back. Everything about the DC5 was just so well thought out and designed that it just works so well on this car in every single way. From out of the gates, the factory DC5 was a very pretty looking car, and to me, it's an aesthetic one that still hasn't aged till this day. Now, because the new Acura Integra is looming around the corner, it's being built by Honda USA. It's not specifically a JDM built vehicle anymore. Because they don't have direct ties with Honda Japan, it's all set out and built, designed over in America. And that's not to say it's a bad car. I know for a fact it's going to be a stunning driver's car and it's going to look so good. However, it's not going to hold the same allure that we know and love about our old school Hondas, our Integras, our Civics. This is what makes Honda unique. And this is the same situation for the new Acura NSX, which was built by Honda USA. It was a car that pushed the boundaries of the NSX nameplate. However, it didn't set any industry first. When we look back in time at the Honda NSX when it was first released in 1989, it was a car that had the first aluminium chassis known in the automotive industry. It was co-designed by championship-winning F1 driver Ayrton Senna, and it revolutionized supercars ever since that car was first released, and still to this day, values on the NSX are through the roof, and that effectively is the same for all of these Integra Type Rs. Prices on these cars have already started to creep up in value. Whether it's a Type R or a Type S, they're just going to keep soaring. You can already see it with how crazy the DC2 Type Rs have been in recent time. They're setting peaks every single day. These cars are going to follow that trend. Whether you own or you're looking to buy an Acura RSX or you have a base model Honda Integra DC5, it doesn't matter. These cars are all Japanese built icons. Typically in a car that I look for, I always try to find the best in its class. So if you're looking for the most fun that you can have out of a front wheel drive car, I definitely say it's a K-swapped old school Civic or Integra. Or if you want the most pure, raw driving front wheel drive sports car out of the gates, I definitely recommend an EK9 Honda Civic Type R or an Integra DC2 Type R. Those cars are an absolute no-brainer, and that's the one to buy if you're looking for that. But all of those cars come with its compromises. And then if you want something that's practical while still being a really good sports car and a front wheel drive one at that. You look at the FD2 Civic Type R, or you look even newer to the FK2 or the FK8 Honda Civic Type R with the new turbocharged engines. And ultimately, this is why I bought the Integra DC5 Type R. It's a car that never really caught my attention because it always was just in the shadows of the other Type Rs. But after driving and learning more about the magic that is in the DC5 Integra Type R, I've grown to love it because it's a car that I can utilize for every single purpose. Whether it's for daily driving, whether it's for track-spirited, focused performance, it's a car that does it all. And then when you park the car up, you walk away and you look back at it, it's a car that reminds you, it's got that Type R heritage and pedigree thrown into it. And with all of that F1 technology that Honda had encapsulated over the years, they've put it into this car as well. It's a car that culminates the greatest qualities of the DC2 Type R as well as the FD2 Civic Type R into one. That's why I think the Honda Integra DC5 Type R is going to be the next big thing. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. In the comments below, tell me what you like about the Integra DC5, whether or not it's the DC2, DC5, as well as the new Acura Integra, because I want to know what you guys reckon in the comments below. If you guys haven't already done so, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Please take care. Bye for now. Thank you.